Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Business Standard Indulgence Lux Lens. It's a monthly luxury-focused webinar from Business Standard. Today, we are going to turn our attention to the kind of luxury that money alone cannot buy. It is the world of buy invitation-only luxury, and you truly need to have arrived in life to be part of it. And among the things that we will be exploring is what India's high net worth individuals and ultra high net worth individuals are looking for when it comes to luxury consumption and experiences. Might define the next decade of becoming our guests. We have with us Mr. Tikka Shatrujit Singh, who's the chairman of JMC. It is a global consulting company that advises luxury brands. He's often described as India's guru of luxury. He is the man credited with bringing LVMH to India at a time when we didn't even have malls. And for years, if not decades, he was the head representative of LVMH in Asia. We also have with us Mr. Krishna Anand. He's the founder of Secret, and now that's a curious name, and we'll come to that why. What he offers are invite-only boutique secret gatherings, for example, he's in Gulmarg or lifestyle gatherings in the Seychelles. Just recently in the Seychelles for one of these, secret gatherings. These events are hosted for a limited number of times in a year and for a select group of people. Welcome, Mr. Singh, and welcome, Mr. Anand.
Thank you.
We also have Ms.
Thank you.
Ishita Ayan. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Really, thank you. And we also have with us Ms. Ishita Ayan Dutt. She's a senior business standard journalist and my colleague. She's based out of Kolkata, which boasts, among a lot of other things, legacy institutions such as the Tollygunj Club, the Tolly Club, the Bengal Club, and we'll be talking about these members-only clubs as well during this conversation. And I'm Veenu Sandhu from Business Standard. Let me begin with you, Mr. Singh. You have been central to India's luxury ecosystem for over 4 decades now. How has the world of luxury in India evolved, and what truly defines, say, an exclusive experience today?
Well, I mean, India is a rapidly growing market. When I started, nobody really knew the brand, This is nearly 30 years ago. I came with my chairman. Very few people understood in India what brands were. But there's been a dramatic shift. And Gen X, Gen Z, Gen Y, or Gen K, they're all now, Western educated, traveled, surge of the internet, of the iPhone. Awareness is there now. It's just the ability to have these brands available in India. Of course, import tariffs have been a huge issue, which negated the growth, vis-a-vis China or the Middle East or anywhere else. We had 120% tariff on alcohol, so luxury brands, imported brands really didn't grow. But all that has changed now with the signing of these free trade agreements with EU, with UK, with America, etc. Things will become, for the next generation, will be much easier for them. But there's a different story, a contrast story also, that Indian brands have also done well, This is a country which knows how to balance things, Where you look at China, Japan, their luxury businesses have boomed because there was no domestic manufacturer. And the Cultural Revolution basically wiped out Chinese designers, Chinese developers of brands. Same thing happened in Japan. Japan was bombed out of, in the World War. And American and European brands came. India, it didn't happen. We still had a history of wearing our bangalas, our saris, our sherwani, our turbans, our local jeweler. So India took the middle path, So growth hasn't been terrific, but it's, again, a very important market. But on the other hand, local brands have prospered too. The wedding market, which is perhaps the biggest in the world, Indian designer brands dominate that space. There's no Western brand who can compete with them. So it's something to be proud of.
Truly, truly. And Mr. Anand, what is your sense of it? You've been 10 years now since you started Secret. It's been 10 years, right?
Yes, it's been 10 years.
What is your sense of the shift, what people want when it comes to luxury?
So I'll tell you, historically, my thought process is that people used to be looking for luxury hadn't evolved in India. So India has three phases, I would say, of luxury. Pre-1947, which is the time we hosted, the estates existed, the Maharajas existed. Tikka Sahib is well aware when the Prince of Wales came to his home in the 1920s, the menus were written in French. They commissioned things from Louis Vuitton. Likewise, pre-independence, when John D. Rockefeller came to India, my great-grandfather hosted him as a house guest at our residence, even though he was declared a state guest at the time. He chose to live with us at home. You exactly knew the process of hosting, who's to be seated next to whom at the table, the kind of food they would enjoy, the kind of pairings, everything that went with it. Then for a few years, I feel, the estates went, the Privy Pursues came in, a lot of that happened, and all that got imported was product. So for a long time, you saw the luxury ecosystem, at least with the upper, I'm not talking about the upper echelons of society, but luxury became about brands, about being, well, unfortunately, being loud. I jokingly saw someone at this fancy hotel in Gulmarg, and he was plastered in brands from top to bottom. And a friend of mine commented, "It looks like Emporios puked on him." Uh, so there was that phase of luxury that came in, which was quite sad. And now I feel, after you've lived at the best hotels, you've drank the finest wine, you've done all the Michelin stars and done all of that. Today, luxury is more about not about where you're going, but what you're doing. So I see a large change. When I was growing up, travel was, well, this summer my parents are taking me to England, and the next summer to the south of France, and the year after that we did Tuscany. Today, luxury is more about not where you're going, but what you're doing. So now I'm off on a ski trip. I'm off playing paddle in the Seychelles. I'm going surfing in Sri Lanka. So I think that's one shift. The second shift that I've seen that has happened is is not only what you're doing, but who you're doing it with. Because the room has become increasingly important. Anyone can buy a room at the Oberoi, the Aman today, but the exclusive experiences that are only for a few people are the kind of rooms you want to be in today. So I would say access is also the new luxury.
Yes, that's a very critical one, and that's really the point of our conversation today, I mean, uh, access, and that kind of a limited access with like-minded people, and or at least people who share your kind of taste perhaps. So but how do these invite only models, like your whole model is invite only, how do these invite only models create value beyond traditional luxury offerings? And Mr. Singh, I would like you also to come in over here, because even within products, it's like, when a new, say, a limited edition uh, uh, drop comes in, there are certain people who might be
So
invited, for the first.
yeah, so brands are very discerning. They know who their client is now. They want to give their exceptional clients an exceptional experience. For example, Cartier does once a year a major jewelry exhibition stroke sale for their top 300 clients from the world in Saint-Tropez. They'll create the right environment. It's a 3-day jamboree with the best champagne, with incredible guest list, with maybe some Hollywood stars packed in. Dolce Gabbana does that in a private island for 3 days, private shows, etc. But it's very focused. It's focused on their top client, sophisticated client, understands the brand and who will shop. It's a business, they're not running a hospital or charity. So everyone is expected to spend. You need to be a $1 million spender per year to be invited. So these are big ticket items. People come in their private jets, private boats, private yachts. So, and they get together, these 300-400 billionaires together, they network with each other. It's a very fun time, and it's a unique experience. It's all about experiencing, fitting with your clients, because people coming from, let's say, China, Argentina, Brazil, they like to meet different people also. Once you made your billions, you want an experience and you want to meet like-minded people. So it's a great event to network with like-minded people. And then the brand shows off all its colors. So, it's like a lovely peacock doing a beautiful dance to seduce you for your money. It basically focuses how to get your money. It's a sale. It may look like a beautiful event, but it's for people who will spend. It's highly focused.
Okay. Mr. Anand, this is the product side of it, like brand, like
Yeah,
selling itself.
so
But
so
this
so from an
fantastic.
invite-only model, creating value beyond traditional luxury, right? I look at it in three ways. And the third one is the one people miss the most. The first is obvious, the product is simply better. 4 nights with 30 chosen people for each other is very different from 4 nights with 30 ticket buyers, even if the hotel and the food are identical. The second is the hosting gets easier. When you know the room, you know who needs an introduction and who needs to be left alone, who should be seated together on night two. And you can't do any of that with strangers. So selection is an efficiency decision as much as it is a quality one. The third one is commercial. Traditional offerings have to re-earn the customer every time. New destination, new pitch, new reason. When the room is the product, the people return for the people. So the acquisition cost actually falls over time instead of rising when your guest list becomes the actual asset. The way I put the difference is an object does not know who else bought me, but a room is defined entirely by who else is in it. And both the things need an opposite strategy.
Okay, well, that's very, very fascinating. Ishita, would you want to come in? Because, I mean, if we were also to go into by invitation only clubs or members only clubs, and you are from a city, I mean, many of us are like, in the metros and all. So among spaces that define this kind of luxury are the legacy institutions like some of them in Kolkata. There's the Madras Club, there's the Chambers, which is Taj Hotel's exclusive business club. And then there are these new age ones like, say, the Quorum. So beyond the pay to access kind of a model, uh, what is it that makes these clubs truly exclusive? Is it just the legacy that they carry, or is it, something more? Is it like a calling card? What is it that truly makes them exclusive and so sought after, generation after generation?
Yeah. So I think the colonial era clubs, if you look at it, it's not just merely about, it's not transactional. So it's more about social capital. It's not about the value, the facilities that it offers, but it's about a shared identity. It's about social capital. It's about and everything that goes with it. Uh, so it's like a shorthand for, I think, social standing and its generation. It's if in a city like Calcutta there are so many of these legacy clubs. It's like the social fabric of the city. So it's kind of generational, no matter what it offers. Even the younger generation, it has its own appeal. It's timeless.
It is.
Yeah, it
So,
is. I think it is.
Calcutta is a unique city,
no, yes,
partly
please.
because
Yes.
it was built by the British and they like these membership clubs. I mean, London is the perfect example. If anything works in terms of clubs and legacy, it's London. Nothing can beat London. There may be 300 clubs in London. Uh, in fact, I was just reading an article rating these clubs, for the exclusivity, heritage, guest list, etc. There's some fascinating clubs, family-oriented clubs, sporting clubs, polo clubs, dining clubs. You should, in fact, I'll send you this little review on the clubs of London. I myself am a club member of a club called 5 Hertford Street. Strange sounding name, but it's voted the #1 club. Why?
What's the name
Because
again?
5 Hertford Street. Yeah, 5 Hertford Street. Very strange sounding name, but it's the most elite club in London. Everybody wants a membership of it. It's beautiful. It's like going into somebody's private home. Members are of an elite class, so you're very comfortable there. You can have breakfast, lunch, dinner, do a party. There's a nightclub, wonderful bars. It's a great place to entertain people, to do your business meetings. Very restricted memberships, They don't care, who you are. They check your background, basically, They will reject you if you're a billionaire. I have a lot of Indian friends who've been rejected, even being billionaires. They don't care. England goes by certain rules. We may not like those rules, but it's England. You have to wear a shirt, you have to wear a tie, you have to wear a jacket, you can't come in sneakers, you can't come in jeans. There's a dress code, which is nice. That's the way they've kept themselves, alive and afloat. And it's nice to have a club where members adhere to certain rules and guidelines. You must visit. I'll send you this site with all the club of London, the exclusive clubs of London. So it reminds me a lot of Calcutta, because Calcutta clearly was influenced by London. And that was the capital of India for the British for so long. And it's only the British, only cities like London and Calcutta where these clubs work. They don't work really well in New York or Paris or Tokyo or anywhere else. All the top clubs are in London.
So often these debates also crop up. We're just steering a little, away from topic. But often these debates crop up that, exclusivity versus being exclusionary. So what's your sense of those, conversations that happen sometimes?
Well, if you're applying for a membership to somebody's private club, the discretion of having you as a member is theirs. They do a full background check on you. If you're a sort of a shady politician, or someone like that, they don't want you. They don't want somebody with a scandal. They don't want you. They don't want your family. And London is very particular about that.
So also these members-only clubs, and Ishita made this point that, it is across generations, whether it's like, somebody's grandfather, father, or like say a Gen Z. But do you feel that there is, and this is a question to everybody, that is there a need perhaps to look at a more diverse generation in this sense, to perhaps in some ways redefine themselves, maybe not an overhaul, but redefine, or is tradition continues to be a strength rather than a barrier to evolution?
Well, in England, particularly London, traditions are the most important. They will not break those traditions, And why not? You want to experience something very different. And England gives you that, They're very proud of their traditions, their sporting clubs, their membership clubs. I mean, there are all kinds of clubs, wine clubs, dancing clubs, eating clubs, They're very proud of these traditions, and some of them are very, very old. Just like Calcutta, for example, polo clubs, etc., where people have been members for generations, and they like to keep it exclusive. A good thing about London and particularly Europe is that money can't get you entry into everything. They're looking at the right background, the right profile. Of course, money is important, but it's not everything. It doesn't buy you in entry into any club. In India, perhaps you can do that, but not in London.
Mr. Anand?
At Secret Veenu, we look at things slightly differently. So at our last edition at the Secret Ski Party, we had about 700 applications for 30 seats. But the ratio is actually the least interesting part, because what you're really asking is what happens to the others, who can't get in. And the honest answer is that most of them are perfectly good, but they were just not right for the room that we were curating. So think about it as casting rather than hiring. You don't cast a film by picking the 30 best actors. You're composing. So the mechanics are low tech. There's an application which takes under 3 minutes to fill up on purpose, because the 20-minute application form just selects people who have time on their hands. The most revealing question is, why do you want to come? And it's capped at 300 characters. The cap is the whole trick. If I gave you unlimited space, people would write a CV. When you're only given 300 characters, people tell the truth. You can usually tell in 2 lines whether someone wants to be in the room or wants to be seen in it. And it's the prior that make it to our room and not the latter. Referrals, obviously, from previous guests have a very high weightage, because you would only like people like you in your circle. And that's what makes this easier for us. And then there's a call, always WhatsApp, never formal. I just want to hear how someone talks when nothing's at stake, when they're not performing for us. And that's how we look at this.
So these are the 3, 4 parameters that you look at when you're,
Totally.
going for the guest. And uh, was it always like this, or has it evolved like as you have gone along?
No, well, it was always reference only, but since 2016, like I said, it started off with friends, friends of friends, friends of friends of friends. But after we made it, well, we designed a process around it only last year in 2025, where we put in a little form, like I spoke about, and people actually request an invitation. And request an invitation for us doesn't work like a marketing funnel. Zero paid ads, zero reach outs from our end, no sales calls, none of that. You request an invitation genuinely. We evaluate the profile and understand if you would fit that room. And if you do belong, then someone will reach out with a WhatsApp, an informal call to understand, like I said, you shouldn't be performing for the titles you wear or the YPO chapter that you're a part of or your net worth or your number on the Forbes list in India, but for who you actually are. And when you're not performing is who you actually are. And that's why the pursuits, right? When you're falling down a ski slope and asking someone for a hand, you've forgotten whether it was your net worth, your company's valuation, and all of that. You're in it for who you are. Likewise, on the paddle court, four strangers meet, and within 60 minutes, they're friends. You're hitting the oddly, which is so that's the way I played my first paddle game 3.5 years ago, taking back from Tikka Saab's words, London's the home to everything in the world, whether with the private member clubs, the dining clubs, things like that. When I'm in London, I'm usually at Park Lane, and a friend called me up, and he was looking for a fourth player to play paddle with him. Um, and a walk from there, Hyde Park, we got in a quick game. And after that, we headed to my favorite bar, the Audley at South Audley Street. Um, and within 60 minutes, all the barriers had broken. No one cared about who came from where, what was your legacy, what was your lineage. And that was it. So I think pursuits really add that aspect to it as well.
Ishita, your sense of it,
I think
particularly in terms of, I mean, if you go back to the clubs, like, how strong is like, the concept of tradition vis-a-vis evolution in a different.
very strong. And I mean, I think that's what holds it together, the tradition. So it's an institution from a different era, and what holds it together is the strong tradition, and that's its appeal. So that's what it's all about. And also Calcutta,
Now, took
because
another question over there that, it's a membership driven. No, you were saying also Calcutta.
no, it's a club culture. That's the culture that it's very strong in the city. So when you were referring to younger generation, so if you have a parent who's a member of a club, you would apply. And then there's scarcity, so it's limited in supply. So you can take in that many members. So that's also there.
In this fair, like, I mean, since the numbers are limited, and you also, Anand, said that, out of 700 applications, 30 you would pick up on various parameters on how people will be comfortable with each other and various other things, whether they have time. But can then membership-driven luxury, can it scale up without diluting exclusivity?
It can.
Or is that not a concern
No, so it
in this
can, but
realm?
along certain axes, and almost no one picks the right one. So the structural problem is that in a membership, the growth engine and the product point are in opposite directions. You're selling the door, and behind the door is whoever else has paid. Meanwhile, the building, the staff, the kitchen, the fixed costs are pushed towards the members, right? So you have a business that grows by becoming more available, and more available is the same thing as worse. The clearest example isn't Indian, it's Soho House, with about 185,000 members and tens of thousands in waiting. In 2024, they simply stopped taking new members in London, New York, and LA because the house had started to feel too busy. I don't read that as a failure. I read it as the model doing what the model does. And to their credit, they said it out loud. So there are three ways to genuinely scale. One is geographically, with each house kept small. The second is by going deeper rather than wider, which means the same members but more programming. We at Secret do both. So different secret ski parties around different pursuits. We build different worlds. Ski was the first one, paddle is the second one. We're doing surfing as the third one. The second, like I said, is more programming. Or then there's another option which I don't support. It's tiering, which works commercially quite cohesively. So you have different tiers. But the moment people can see the tier above them, the room starts feeling like a queue, you know? And then there's the fourth way, which I don't think works very well, which is keeping the room the same size and quietly lowering the bar of people coming in. Nobody announces that, but everyone notices it.
But why would they do that? Like, I mean, if that is the USP of,
Well, you see, there's economics of clubs as well, and I don't want to name private member clubs like that. But today there's a lot of private equity money that's come into the private member club space. Recently, Annabelle's was also purchased. I'm sure they'll obviously keep the name, brand, legacy, everything intact. But with a lot of investor money, venture capital money, and private equity money entering these spheres, the clubs also need to deliver a return to their investors, unfortunately. And when the investor return comes in and people are looking at an 18% ARR, etc., then, well, either the cost of the membership goes up, or the number of members go up, or services become more expensive. So something or the other does happen, and you can see it.
So would staying independent be your,
As long as I can, yes, definitely.
all right. Mr. Singh, when we talk about luxury, storytelling is such an integral part of it, whether it's, Louis Vuitton or, anything, whether it's the experiences that you offer, Mr. Anand, how central is storytelling and what kind of a part that does it play in these experiences?
I mean,
How important is it?
storytelling is the most important. You have a heritage, then you have, a legitimacy, then you have a history. It's all about storytelling. For example, you take Cartier, the story with India. The best was always made for India. People forget, luxury business had collapsed in the 20s after the Great Depression. It's Indian nobility, Indian Maharajas who gave commissions to all these brands, whether it's Baccarat, Louis Vuitton, Goyard, Rolls-Royce, Holland and Holland, Purdy guns, and revived them. They were made to measure, specially made, custom made. The Maharajas never went to the store. There's a story of Mr. Louis Vuitton waiting outside the Ritz Hotel in Paris and had to go through the back door to meet him, but he said it's worth waiting 2 weeks. So you get a massive commission. So India was always an integral part of the development of luxury in the world. I don't think it's given enough credit. There's a beautiful book by Dr. Amin Jafar called Made for Maharajas, which is worth reading, where he credits, India for reviving all these brands. So if you take any luxury brand which has a pedigree and a history, the best was made for Indian clients. So that's something to be proud of, because Indians always had a very discerning eye for detail. If the Maharaja sat with Mr. Cartier, it was Mr. Cartier, not some karigar coming, drawing their piece of jewelry. So the archives are full of such things. So an experience for an Indian customer today to go to Cartier and they pull out the archives and give you the history behind the fabulous Patiala necklace or the Kapurthala emerald tiara, gives you a sense of pride. So most brands have incredible archives, simply incredible archives. And I've had the pleasure of traveling this summer to Dom Perignon, for example, and Shatrujit and Cheval Blanc, some of the best vineyards in the world. And they had records of my great-grandfather visiting, Mr. Mohit, because it was privately owned, Mr. Ikem, because it was privately owned, and they making special vintages for him, creating special experiences for him. So I think that heritage in Europe is so important that they've managed to package it and sell it beautifully, So it's all about experiences, heritage, credibility, and they can then command these incredible prices today. Prices of everything is astronomical.
I'll give a little bit of an unfashionable answer, Veenu. I think storytelling is overrated at the front end and almost the whole game at the back end. At the front end, a story is just a promise. A promise in this category, you know. But what actually creates desire are the specifics, the slightly strange variable details. In our case, a table laid at 14,000 feet, where one of Asia's 50 best restaurants came and served lunch. A bartender from one of Asia's 50 best bars creating a saffron Negroni that was only going to be drunk by those people that only existed for those 4 days with the saffron that came from Pampur. It's not storytelling. It's facts that happen to be hard to believe. And that difference matters because a fact survives being retold. The story usually doesn't. The back end is where it really lives, and I don't control it. The only thing that has ever grown this is a guest describing it badly to a friend 3 weeks later. They never get the details right, but they always get the feeling right. So my discipline is close to the opposite of storytelling. I just make sure a thing is more interesting than anything I could ever write about. If I find myself writing something better than the thing, then I've got a product problem, not a marketing problem.
No, I mean, I disagree with him in certain ways. I've had the experience of going to Chateau Yquem and drinking a 1893 bottle of Yquem. Now, that's a story.
Wow.
I mean, I was with a group of Indian billionaires, 10 of them. They were fascinated. So it's how you balance everything. There's no right or wrong. The product speaks for itself. Chateau Yquem speaks for itself. It needs no introduction if you have
Exactly.
a client. So it's always a mix. But heritage is very important. Of course, there are new brands which are doing very well, but the old brands with heritage, people still flock towards them. Goyard, for example, is a brand which my great-grandfather patronized. It's the only brand in the world which doesn't advertise. Can you imagine? It's up against Louis Vuitton. It's up against all the big brands. It's never advertised. You don't even know who the owner is. They've never done a press conference. So there are different strategies for different brands. And I think that's what makes it such a fun world, of luxury. Nothing is constant. Everything is dynamic and changing.
True, 100% agreed. And on the bottle of wine, the fact that it was an 1893 vintage is the fact, and that's what builds the story. So that was my thinking. When there's a fact behind the story, it's actually something that will travel much further than just a story.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
But aren't there always facts behind that story? Like including in the experiences that you are creating, like, getting the best chefs, the best restaurant. Isn't that also fact, and that creates a story?
100%. That's exactly what my point was. So there is the fact, and that's what converts into the story, and then ultimately that's what goes out there.
What will define the next, say, decade of luxury? Access is there, personalization we've been seeing, access is another thing that's become big, or will it be something entirely different? Where are we heading? Because luxury also, the story of luxury has also traveled. Like you went back in time to pre-independence to now, like what would define the future of luxury? How will we see it? Ishita, you also please come in. What is your sense of it?
I think again, it's always a mystery. One is trying to preempt change. Change will always be there. You have different categories of clients, different products. Who knows? Maybe with AI, they'll develop something which we can't even imagine. So one has to keep an open mind. Incredibly creative people today in the world. There's a younger generation which is looking for something different. Maybe the logos disappear. Their brands now, nameless brands, seamless brands. Who knows? I think it's all driven by client demand. Marketeers are very sensitive to get feedback as to what is happening. I remember traveling with my chairman, who was chairman of Louis Vuitton for 25 years. We had a commercial plane, but he never flew it. I said, why aren't we flying private? He said, I want to go to the airport. I want to see what people are wearing. I want to understand where they want to go, where they're traveling, you know. He wanted to get a touch and feel of his clients. That's what made him so successful. So it's very important to understand where the next generation is going, what they enjoy, where they want to party, where they want to get married, what they want to wear, what they're comfortable with. I think it's a very dynamic situation. And any brand which can forecast this properly will make billions, you know. I mean, the scale is going to be huge now. And people with economic might and education, it's growing rapidly despite all the hiccups with these short-term wars. I mean, development, stock markets, everything's going up. You know, new ideas are coming. It's a very exciting place to be in.
Mr. Anand?
From an experience standpoint, and I'll give you the idea from an experience standpoint of what the next gen of HNIs are looking for. So 4 things I feel. First is obviously they've done the standard sequence early, first class, the villa, the European summer, they've all done it by 30. So there's no novelty in the basic products. You can't sell them a place anymore. What you need to sell them now is a reason to go. The second is the pursuit driving it rather than the destination driving it. The question isn't where should I go? It's more I ski, I play, I dive, and who else do I do it with? The third thing that I see is that they're definitely more private than a generation above. That one often this one doesn't actually often want to be photographed. They don't want to be tagged in features. Another important one, I feel, and something that no one is saying out loud, is that a lot of them, HNIs, UHNIs, are lonely in a very specific way. If you're 32 and you've built or inherited something serious, most rooms you walk into contain people who want something from you. It gets structurally hard to make new friends because every introduction has an angle. And that's what we're actually selling, if I'm honest. Not the mountain, not for days where nobody in the room needs to perform. It's like, you are who you are and you've come to connect, like Tikka Saab said, right? In places like when Cartier hosts or Dolce Gabbana hosts, there are 400 billionaires in the room, and each one has come to connect, to interact, to meaningfully meet other people. Because while they've inherited or achieved what they have in their lives, they look to meet the right kind of people like them, but yet different. And people who actually don't want anything from you necessarily.
Okay. And a counter to that, I mean, people who don't want anything from you, it's also made me think of Richie Rich in some way, the poor little rich poor. Anyway, so Ishita, I would like to ask you this, that, the informal networks that, are formed within clubs, whether it's business, politics, or the cultural capital that you talked about, and these elite networks, what is the kind of role that they play in, say, emerging economies like India? I mean, though we have a rich heritage of whether it's like, our craftsmanship and this, but specifically these clubs, like in an economy like India, which is an emerging economy and doing pretty well, how do these, what role do places such as these invite-only places play?
I think they provide a space which is discreet, private setting where relationships build organically, and that's the role they've played, and I think that's the role that we'll continue playing. I don't see that changing in any way.
Okay. What more does India need to do that, we talked so much about London, and so many times conversation come up that India doesn't specifically have its own, a luxury export. And Mr. Singh, you have also talked about it, and you've said that, it's like just a matter of time. What needs to be done so that, we have like a global brand perhaps, or something that really stands out that people crave and, Mr. Singh?
I think it will start, I mean, for example, I take the jewelry category. They're wonderful Indian jewelers, someone like Viren Bhagat and Krishna Chaudhary. They've now opened small outlets in London for their clients. These guys are at a level on par with anything the West has to offer. In fact, Viren is even more expensive than any other jeweler you can think of. And he's highly respected. They've done it on their own. Unfortunately, government hasn't encouraged this sector. It's not looked upon politically correct. But I think mindsets are changing in India. We will one day be able to unleash luxury brands. Why not? This is where everything came from. Why are we lagging behind? My tailor, when I was growing up, made the most beautiful bangalas. He remained Amar Singh Tailor. He died as Amar Singh Master Tailor. Had he been alive today, I'm sure he would become a great brand too. So we have all the craft. We have the heritage. We just need to package it properly. There's now a very important Indian diaspora globally. So that could help you get into certain markets. I'm confident it's a matter of time where the big boys in the industry are already buying up these Indian designers from Birlas to Reliance. They will unleash some of them. Some of them have been. I mean, Sabyasachi has a huge store in New York and maybe Dubai, etc. So I think you will see more and more Indian brands going outside. I look at a brand like Dutt. It may not be super luxury, but it's a very exciting brand. I think it has a lot of potential. Again, if it's packaged properly, marketed properly, there is a market for it. So there's some beautiful little jewels lying around India which need hand-holding, packaging. And I, for one, am very excited to help them. There's a cashmere brand called Janvi by Jyotika Jilani. Again, it's an outstanding brand. It could have become better than Loro Piana. It had limitations in terms of budgets, marketing, but I mean, India has the potential. It's just that we have been hand-tied with government policies not promoting this. But I think their thinking is changing. I mean, I was recently in Venice. The government had supported the Indian pavilion in Venice for the first time in God knows how many years. So that mindset has to change. If you want to be a global player, the government has to participate too. You can't be divorced from the government, So everything goes hand in hand.
Mr. Anand, in terms of like experiences or India destination, because we also keep talking about how not enough foreign tourists, I mean, even though it's such an exciting and such a fantastic country with the range it offers, how do initiatives such as yours can change that?
So a couple of things. One is at the Secret Ski Party this year, interestingly, we had an Austrian gentleman, a Brazilian lady, a French gentleman, someone who's Swiss, and someone who had all come down from Africa. And currently, like Tikka Saab said, we are not working with support from the government. We're working despite or in spite of the government. So unfortunately, in the case of Jammu and Kashmir, Kashmir used to be home to a lot bring in a lot of foreign visitors prior to the problems in 1989. And after that, many foreign governments have advisories against visiting Kashmir. So that becomes a challenge. And currently, all the foreign tourists coming into India usually does the Golden Quadrilateral, which is Delhi, Agra, Jaipur, pretty much. And I feel Kashmir, one, opens up an opportunity like this, experiences bring in people. But more than from an experience standpoint, even to second Tikka Saab, from a product standpoint, you see, Kashmir is home to cashmere, as he said. He spoke about the brand Jahnavi, also to Kashmiri carpets, silk on silks, with 5,000 knots in a square inch. Truly luxurious. The Kani shawls, the sui kam, the soznis, all of that work. Back in the days, back in the 1980s and 90s, a dear friend's family ran this brand called Cottage Industries Exposition, CIE. And there used to be one thing common between Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, Jack Ma, Paul McCartney, and Mick Jagger and Madonna. And that was that they all owned something from CIE, and usually a silk carpet. So Kashmir definitely has the potential, the product, the craft, the history, the heritage, the lineage. Like Tikka Saab said, we need someone to package it well and take it to the world.
Absolutely. He's spot on. Kashmir is the epicenter of everything beautiful. It's the paradise. I mean, for the Mughal emperors, that's what paradise was. And we've not done much to protect all its craft. The government needs to intervene and protect the craft and encourage people to go and visit. For me, it's been the most beautiful place. I spent my childhood traveling to Kashmir, and I knew that these families very well. And I wish we could do something, brand Kashmir. I mean, it's one of the greatest world brands, which is far superior than Switzerland, but we've never developed it the way it should have been developed.
Very true.
Is luxury, we talked about this, but is luxury war-proof? And is it insulated from geopolitical uncertainties, the kinds that are going on right now?
No, I think
Is this the case?
so. I mean, geopolitical uncertainties have always been there, but creating magical product will never cease. Human beings want something beautiful. It's the beauty which attracts people. It's outstanding craft which attracts people. That will continue. There'll always be a demand for something exceptional. And people who can create this magical world of beautiful craft and be able to package it and sell it, that business will continue. I mean, it's been there forever. It will continue as long as we are alive, as long as human beings exist. They'll always want something beautiful.
Stan?
Two things. One, is it war-proof? Definitely yes. At the highest level, definitely is. UHNI demand is totally immune to wars and everything. And the premium segment is a segment where it does get affected, because if someone flies business or first class, his travel schedules are still disrupted with the war in the Middle East. But like Tikka Saab said, if someone's flying private, it may not. Well, I guess in every game there are levels. And at the highest level, obviously, it's absolutely immune. The economic concept of Veblen goods, completely untouched. At a level below that, which is still luxury, I do think it does get impacted. In a real life example, a family of 4 that generally travels first class to Europe over the summer generally spends about 20 lakh rupees on their tickets. But when the tickets went up to 40, they were like, should we be doing this holiday this year or not? Definitely luxury, they're flying first, but with the impacts of geopolitics, the war, airspace is closing down, some people's plans did change.
All right. Well, thank you so very much. This is, I mean, it's been quite a wonderful discussion. And also, like Mr. Singh said, it's immune. You said to some extent, perhaps it's not. But clearly for India, things are looking up when we talk about the luxury segment. Just today in Business Standard, we had an article that talks about how individuals reporting incomes upwards of, say, 100 crore rupees has gone up something like 300% in 4 years from FY21 to FY25. So that's a good thing. Thank you so very much, everybody, for joining us today. Fantastic discussion. So like to say that, day after tomorrow on the 30th of July at 6 p.m. Thursday, there will be a special webinar which will look at the historic economic reforms of 1991 and mark 35 years of the reforms that ushered in liberalization. We will have, again, a stellar lineup of panelists. We will have Mr. Muntek Singh Ahluwalia, the top bureaucrat of the time, and the industrialist, Mr. Naushad Forbes, who closely watched business sentiments changed dramatically after the announcement of the 1991 reforms. So do please register for it. And once again, thank you so very much for taking the time to be here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.